Welcome back, everybody, to HGG. We have our finalists, the United Kingdom and Denmark. But first, we've got to play for the pride of third place. Hong Kong and Japan going to be battling out for that. And the lineups, Derek, are pretty much the same.
They are indeed. The rogue for Japan is obviously the already infamous Anubisath Warbringer Apothecary rogue, which was just absolutely dreadful in that series. 0-3, didn't get the hand it needed any time. But maybe we'll see a turnaround for that up against Hong Kong. They've got the Paladin on the other side, the OTK Paladin, which if they can match into that, might be a little bit more amenable. Or if they're going up against the Mirror, as we can see here, at least in terms of classes, at least they have the Apothecary this time to get things rolling.
Yeah, you say at least they have the Apothecary. I mean, that is the deck, right? You either have Apothecary or you don't. That is the trouble of the deck. That is the strength of the deck. When you have it, although they don't have the coin, but there's wisps and things hanging around. When you do have it, then you are very, very hard to stop. And again, Possessi, I mentioned it every single time, but I think it bears saying again for people who just got there. This deck did not exist before Possessi invented it. This is the deck you saw a lot early last week, and that was because the deck lists for HGG were released, and people went, that looks cool. And whether it's good or bad, it is certainly a great design.
It is indeed. Oh, and it's starting to come together pretty well now. Apothecary into Anchor, obviously with the Warbringer already drawn, reduce it down to 1, start buffing everything up. I'm sensing a powerful curve here for Possessi.
Yeah, and this deck is actually surprisingly hard to play. That's where the Quest Rogue comparisons come from. I don't think it's as hard to play as Quest Rogue. I think I've seen Quest Rogue players be a bit insulted by that comment, but
I agree.
It is still a very hard deck to play accurately. Whether you need to play it accurately when you just smash 5/5s all over the place is another question.
I guess so.
I think like building it is far and away the hardest part because, as I said, I feel like Possessi came across something strong here, but it is definitely unrefined. And so maybe if someone else can come along with a better build, maybe one that includes, I don't know, the Togwaggle package, or maybe one that includes Galakron in the late game. There must be something that can be done to optimize this deck. But I think, once it gets into game and you hit situations like this, it's pretty prescriptive. You just cheat out your big death rattles and go for as much buffage as possible.
And to be fair, I mean, I heard you talking in the last game about Denmark with their version of it. I mean, basically, Denmark hit the post in building the deck really well. They just missed the fact that Warbringer worked and went with Whelps instead, Mechanical Whelps. I think if they just changed that card for Warbringer, that would have been an even more solid deck. I think they very nearly got it right.
Maybe.
Meanwhile, though, while we're talking about how great this hand is, and exactly, oof, indeed, a flying Edwin.
Oh my god! Imagine that. Now it has wings.
Yeah, and there's not much to stop it right now.
Yeah. What? Like,
Wisp
what? Does he have to go
just to
faceless corruptor and swing?
I think he might have to.
That's awful.
I don't think I've even ever seen that happen. I don't think I've ever seen a Faceless Corruptor just be played.
Yeah, me neither.
In any, and I've seen a lot of Faceless Corruptors.
If he goes deckhand, Apothecary, and trades into the Zephyrus, he survives on board.
Okay, then try and win next turn.
Yeah, just pray that there's no extra
with Ziliax next turn, and
that's right. Yeah.
And then try and win the turn.
I think that's okay. I think I like this plan. I think going for the Faceless Corruptor is like you're in the same situation next turn, basically, where you're just almost dead, and you don't then have a big buff Ziliax.
Yeah. Turns out Ziliax is pretty good when it's a 6/5.
How much damage are we looking for here? It needs 4 extra damage, so I don't think there's any lackeys that could afford him that off of the Seal Fate.
Not that I can think of.
So this makes sense. Get the damage through to face with the dagger and start really trying to close things out. But to be fair, Possessi now has a pretty strong play of his own.
Yeah, pretty strong is one way of putting it. Flying Ziliaxes followed by Scale Hides the turn after.
Can he afford to play the Vial? No, he can't, right? He's very close to being able to play the Vial.
It's nonsense!
Yeah, this is pretty disgusting.
Yeah, who cares about 6-6 Wind Fury Edwin Van Cleefs? What have they ever done for anybody?
Flick can come in and at least somewhat save the day up against this Ziliax to try and sneak that extra damage through. Because again, with this deck, you're running Leroy, you've got a whole bunch of damage in there as well.
Yeah.
And honestly, just because it means he's closer to the damage cards.
Oh my goodness.
Pretty nuts. So I guess this turn you probably go
Sorry.
Anchor plus Scale Hide, and then next turn you can go 1/1 plus Necrium Vial. Well, instead they're just putting as much damage on board as possible.
Just make monsters.
Threatens lethal. Yeah, this is probably better.
Look at how Possessy is like just looking at this. Obviously, just gone through the more important match. It's like, why didn't this happen against Denmark?
So if he goes Galakron and hits Leroy, we're looking at potentially lethal next turn. That's like a very specific card he has to hit. And even then, there's still the Scale Hide, which heals up again.
Yeah, it's when this deck, it's a bit like Quest Rogue in that regard. When it does its thing, the tide just doesn't turn back.
Wow, he didn't want to clear off the 4-2. I guess that makes sense to an extent, because he's not really relying on damage closing out the game anymore. He wants to seize back board. Because honestly, as disgusting as this looks, there's not that much left over for Possessy.
Yeah.
Obviously, the pick of the Scale Hide definitely helps, but if one can find a way to clear, he has an avenue back into the game.
Yeah, there's some sort of Zephyrus craziness, although, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like, Krunks can clear most of this off.
Okay.
No, it can't, actually. He's just still dead.
Yeah. It's just an absurd deck, and that's why I was so pleased to see Japan bring this build.
Yeah.
And I love Hearthstone tournaments where you've got limited time to find out what's going on in a new meta. Everybody worked out Shaman, even I could have done that. And so by continuation, they also worked out Holy Wrath Paladin, because that was the only viable, sensible, quick alternative to beating Shaman. Yeah. And then you're on your own. You just had to bring what you thought was going to work. And we have seen a lot of Rogue, but they've all been very different builds.
They have, and again, I still think that there's not a real consensus. We'll have to see a lot of different experimentation before we find the optimal build heading into the Masters Tour Arlington in just over a month's time. But now it is going to be, as you said, that Shaman, which pretty much everyone clocked onto just how powerful it was, up against the Pirate Warrior, which is definitely not the aggressive warrior of choice, it feels like at the moment. Tempo Galakron Warrior seems to have eclipsed the popularity of Pirate Warrior, but there are definitely some real advantages that you get for going with this version.
Yeah, the Galakron version, for instance, you kind of have to play your invoke stuff on curve to a large degree. So you only get to attack when, like, almost at random. Obviously you have control over it. Obviously you can hold cards back. But this just curves out and doesn't have to worry about any of that. It just gets on with it. But this particular hand is going nowhere fast.
Yeah, it's going to take a little while to get going. That's not necessarily such a bad thing, because if Possessy can find Greenskin or an upgrade, up against Shaman, you do have the possibility of just going like very much everything to the face and hope they don't have Dragon's Pack. It's a reasonable way to approach the matchup.
Yeah.
But he does need to find something else. I absolutely agree. At the moment, this is not game winning.
Yeah, it relies on several cheating mechanics, like getting this parachute boy back into play quickly rather than later. And it hasn't managed to do any of that cheating. It is going to get the turn 5 Reaper Dread Corsair nonsense. Double the Dread Corsair nonsense, which might now make a big difference.
I don't think I've ever seen someone just play Parachute Brigand from hand. It like a 2-mana 2/2 pirate.
Yeah, and there's not that much pirate synergy in the deck, even though it's a pirate deck. Like, the Brigand is the synergy.
Yeah. Ooh, that is not a bad find at all, though, for Fung. A 2-mana, 2-mana Corruptor is a great way to swing the board back in his favor.
You're playing Dread Corsair for nothing next turn, and just in the interest of tempo, you have to play it for 4 entire mana this turn.
But as I said, this has obviously been a pretty abysmal starting hand. He's still miles ahead on board. He's pushed a decent bit of damage. He has the green skin. He has it with the Arcanite Reaper. That's like usually like 17 damage that you can push then with that weapon. That should be enough if things currently continue on their expected trajectory to close out the game.
Yeah, especially with Leroy faceless in hand, you can turn your things into 5/4s if the game sort of stalls out. Until this nonsense occurred, you fancied your chances. The trouble is, one thing we're forgetting is that Shaman last week was complete nonsense.
Yeah, I think it was very smart as well to freeze the face there by Fung, because obviously you're expecting Reaper in turn 5.
Plus all the minions are dead, so freezing face was a sensible time.
Right. Well, that's the thing, is he could have frozen a minion instead of going for Coin Earthshock. I definitely like the freezing face part. I'm not sure if I like Coin Earthshock quite so much, because it's like, it's 1 damage. Is that really worth getting rid of the coin?
You're assessing that you're dead in 2 turns if you don't win.
That's
fair, so long-term things just don't matter. There is no long-term here.
Fair
unless you draw the Dragon's Pack, in which case you win anyway.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
But man, oh man, has the tides of battle turned quickly. Fung here is absolutely on the aggressive here. It looks like he'll be able to close out this game way before Possessi can deliver lethal in his own right.
Oh, Possessi. Yeah, Brigand for free. Dread Corsair for free. What a silly turn this would have been with the if turn 4 had been more sensible and not having to spend a 4-mana Corsair.
Probably got to trade into the 5/3 here. I don't think there's much value in value trading. Yeah.
Yes.
It just doesn't work. I mean, I guess trading into the 3/3 makes the 3/3 of your own a little bit harder to deal with, but yeah, I absolutely agree. You want to get rid of the biggest thing, smack face with everything else. Oh, that is insane!
It's completely nuts. It just stops any of this slight danger from the Reaper.
Yeah. Don't fear the Reaper.
Wow. That 1980s songs on point. And in fact, they didn't fear it.
Exactly. Very appropriate. I mean, I guess so. They just don't even need to go for it here. Is there any world where they're dead? None that we can see, and none that have... One game apiece here between Hong Kong and Japan in our 3rd, 4th place decider match before we head to the finals later on. It's an exciting one. It's very, very close.
Yeah, if you went to get popcorn or something just to watch this game, you just missed the first half of the match. It's the quickest segment I think we've had in the 4 weeks of this Global Games. So we're going to celebrate by taking 3 minutes off, and then we'll come back and find out who grabs that 3rd place. One game apiece between Hong Kong and Japan in the third place match in Hearthstone Global Games. The United Kingdom and Denmark waiting in the wings to take the centre stage to find out this year's champions. But still, the matter of being the best non-European team hangs in the balance between these two teams.
Yeah, it's not a bad accomplishment at all. And even just third in the Hearthstone is nothing to be sniffed at. Fourth is nothing to be sniffed at when you consider the caliber of players that came into this tournament. But now for Kin and Fong, it is going to be the not the Highlander, the OTK Paladin that they have left to take a win with, which I think is in a pretty good spot, even if it ends up losing here against the Pirate Warrior. I think it should still be in a good shot to take the win against the Paladin. Not the Paladin, against the Shaman, the Galacron Shaman. Yeah, God, what on earth am I talking about? The Paladin for Hong Kong should be good against the Shaman for Japan, even if they lose this game.
Yeah, and they've got a chance of winning this one because they do have the early Pyromancer, but Japan with a much better hand this time means that their hand will develop. As it should when you draw your small stuff early in aggro decks, you draw your medium and big stuff late, which tends to lead to a fantastic looking curve. So just clearing up this first board probably won't be enough for the Paladin. Now I'm doing it.
I really like the Tempo Zephrys here. I think that even though they reached almost instinctively for Novice Engineer there, just because it was their best option outside of that, I think even though there's a good chance it does become active later on, you've probably won or lost at that point anyway. And even if it would be good later on, it's good now. Get it down. Don't worry about the late game because this is aggressive as all hell.
Yeah, you know they've got the curve as well, so just let things happen. Take a beating. Actually, this is quite irritating. It's just challenging the board really annoyingly.
Yeah, if they hadn't gone for that, they would be in some major trouble from South Sea Captain on the following turn.
Yeah, I mean, they're still going to take a bit of a hit from it, but nothing like what it would have been.
Yeah. It's probably going to be like trade into one of the pirates, the town crier trades in, and then you have 2/2/3s that can keep attacking face, which is pretty scary, to be fair.
But wait, we've got a Novice Engineer. It's okay.
But wait, there's more.
Carefully selecting which one to choose in case
I
don't know what.
Yeah, as long as you're taking out a pirate, I think that's correct. Trading here to play around concentration, I suppose. Not taking out the captain.
Captain's a big deal, so that makes sense.
Yeah. True Silver, however, still here to save the day, and it does mean that the amount of damage on board for Glory is somewhat, pretty drastically mitigated. Once again, only 2 in play, and a turn away from the power plays coming through. I wonder what we'll actually see here. I guess Restless Mummy, is just the best card you can play on this turn, even if it's not very reactive.
Pretty much guarantees some damage on board next turn, and a minion on board next turn, so you've got something to faceless as well. Is a big deal.
Good point.
Plus, obviously, you're hoping to play the Corsair in cheat mode later on. Wow. But that's just convenient.
That's actually insane. Yeah.
They've got the Banker in hand, so they can just Chevalier and Banker and just use it as a way to not die whilst they continue about their business for later.
And I mean, they very probably will in the next couple of turns. Even here, it looks pretty good. Just to go Chevalier, shuffle, take out the other one with the weapon.
Yeah, it really does. Always when you make this decision, you've got to realise you can only do this the once, because next time you're down to Banker, and you don't have win conditions in the deck if it's gone. So, well, you do, as Boar Control and Dead Draw nearly proved yesterday. You can just hit people with nonsense by getting a Tyrion. But realistically, I think there's Zephrys, so they haven't even got that option at all.
Right, once Zephrys goes, you need some kind of Chevalier nonsense to win the game.
But I think Glory is full of accept. Now they're not in the finals, he's kind of accepted. Okay, this is just funny rather than terrifying now.
He's not out of it at all. You know, he's got a pretty decent hand. Arcanite Reaper off the top. Okay, you'd probably take that. And he can use... he can use the Restless Mummy to take out the Chevalier.
Yeah, good to see the players, like the Grandmasters, loosening up as well, showing a bit of personality. Players like Glory, we're going to see a lot of them in the next year. So
Or players like Kin as well, actually. Could be seeing a lot of him as well.
yeah, yeah, he's a big threat in Grandmasters. Like, do we just keep trading forever and never do any damage, or what?
I know, that's the problem with this deck. It just has to trade and trade and trade and trade and trade. Because it's not like Face Hunter where it seems to have infinite face damage.
Yeah, it turns out that your magic button gaining you 2 armor is entirely rubbish in this deck.
So bad. God, this is where you just need old school Finley, right?
Yeah, or you need to start pressing the button every turn now so that the deck opposite you can't kill you. Pretend you're a control warrior.
I mean, that is something to consider. Well, before you see Shavala Shuffle, it's not something to consider. Now, it's something to consider a little bit more heavily because you've already seen one banker. So, it's unlikely that they will be able to deal more than like 30 damage out of hand.
Yeah.
But the problem is
Servalars when they come down in
exactly
later.
Exactly, which I think is pretty much impossible for this Pirate Warrior deck to do.
Yeah, it just has this option of just keep hitting them and hope. Still got quite a lot of stuff available, but they can't even play their Dread Corsairs because the trades on board are so bad.
Yeah, setting up for the Sky Barge plus a bunch of pirates, I think, is very smart.
Yeah. But yet again, it's another turn where they're not doing much, but 20 damage can come pretty quickly from this deck.
It can, especially...
Timeout doesn't necessarily hold that.
Yeah, there's not too many minions in play now either, with the board wipe coming through on the Pyro and the Banker, so these 2 damage hits from the Sky Barge may be able to get the job done.
Yeah, ever since the captain went, the minions have just been pretty toothless to even deal with the rubbish that Paladins can put on the board.
Well,
Right,
I think
Sky
it's pretty
Barge.
simple. Yeah.
Get Sky Barging like you've never Sky Barged before.
X marks the spot.
Blood
Nope.
and plunder.
Okay.
Blood and plunder.
Oh dear.
Yeah, I mean, you just ignore the Kangor now, right? Like,
Yeah,
this face every time, and you hope they don't have healing.
just gotta hope that you kill them next turn, that there's no healing like you say.
Yeah.
And there is no healing, but the downside is they've got double timeout.
You know, this could still get there from the warrior. It's not over at all.
Looking for ways how the board can be cleared. At the moment, there are none. And with Leroy and Arcanite Reaper in hand. Oof.
It's not bad.
It's not bad at all.
One shot, one.
Fits in just right. Gonna have to time out though, and the damage is still coming pretty rapidly. And the healing is not showing its face right now.
So Zephyrus is gone, so there's no weapon destruction available. So I think you're very. Actually, I was going to say you have full freedom to play the Arcanite Reaper and start swinging next turn. You could argue that you might want to save it in case you draw Anchor on the following turn, which you would probably rather play.
Yeah, that's fair.
But I think even then, that's a pretty slim possibility. So I'd rather just spend the mana this turn on Arcanite Reaper.
Do you need to though? Like next turn, if you're playing Arcanite and Leroy, you're probably winning.
Yeah,
but you
maybe
want the charge on the
damage,
deckhand.
right? Yeah, maybe the 2 damage charge from deckhand makes the difference. It's unlikely, but it's possible. Yeah, you're not swinging into the weapon with that. That needs to connect.
Yeah, you're not crying if you draw Anchor anyway, I don't think. Because they're going to waste turns timeouting and healing, and then you're going to Anchor after those 2 turns and just build yet another board.
Obviously, this is terrible versus Consecration, but I think they need to start making some big risks. I
I
think
would
this is a
much
trade.
rather. I would much rather, because of the adding up of 7, 5, and 6 coming to more than 17, trading the deck hand there because of what is actually going to happen. I know I have Caster Vision, but just because you've seen Consecration doesn't mean they haven't got Pyromancer and 2 spells.
I don't know. It's so hard.
It's so difficult with Caster
I think
Vision.
they made the right play. I think they made the right play because it's starting to slip away so heavily for them, right?
But if they just protect the 7/3, they had a chance at lethal in some situations.
Maybe. I mean, it would have died anyway in this instance, right? Which I guess is a bit result.
Yeah,
Reporting for duty.
I don't know.
it's a tricky one, but yes. But what's even trickier now is what on earth you do with this.
Well, yeah, that always connects face, and then I guess you pass the rest. Is there any kind of Leroy combo with the Bloodsworn Mercenary? I don't think there is.
Don't think so. That Pyromancer was huge though, it protected that second time out.
True, yeah.
And when we've been discussing like hanging on in there and everything, Hong Kong have got themselves down to 4 cards left in their deck.
Wow.
Me think.
So I guess Holy Wrath. Actually, that's kind of a tough point because if you go Holy Wrath face, obviously you have a chance to just win the game, which is nice. But even if you miss, even though you've used up most of your win condition, I think Shavala Sathravar is probably win condition enough.
Yeah.
Let me think.
And because of that, I think you probably just go Holy Wrath face here.
If you're going to do that, maybe you want to time out first.
Move quickly.
Maybe not. Maybe you're so far in the lead that you can just go for the guaranteed win in the next couple of turns.
Yeah.
He just needs to think, is there any way that he dies here at all? Any way at all? Well,
Doesn't
not anymore.
matter. That solves that discussion. Correct play is to smash it into the face, do 25. And that's
Why
2-1.
Yeah, 2-1 in favor of Hong Kong. The Paladin out the way. Only their rogue left now, which I believe is the Highlander rogue, which we saw from some of the teams. UK, I believe, and Hong Kong both went with the Highlander rogue. Should be in a pretty good spot, I think.
Yeah, it's got the Warbringer as well. It's the slightly more advanced Highlander rogue.
Yeah.
Yeah. So probably it's one of the better decks we saw. I think we saw the mediocre rogue decks because it was the hardest deck to build.
Definitely true.
And that's not even it's not offensive to the teams who didn't bring the great decks. It's just that it was, everybody knew Rogue was good and it was very difficult to find a build that made sense. But finding Warbringer as a thing was a big deal, I think.
Yeah, it was a very big thing. And I mean, honestly, I know that we've been rightly so praising Possessi for finding the Warbringer version quicker than anyone else. I kind of feel like it's like flashy and therefore we appreciate it more.
Yeah.
I think the Highlander version with Warbringer is probably just better, in my opinion. Like it's less all or nothing on finding the apothecary.
Yeah, I don't agree, but I can see where you're coming from. The reason I don't agree is because in the timeline where this was played, finding the answer to the flashy deck was actually quite hard.
Fair.
And it answers itself by not drawing the apothecary, but if you didn't, apart from that, there was no real answer to the deck because nobody had, they didn't know the question existed. Whereas now, I would agree with you that deck isn't that powerful because people are now adjusting to it and there's ways to defeat it.
I think what was like the real smart bring to this tournament wasn't even discovering the new version of Rogue. It was just remembering that Priest exists and you should play combo Priest. Like Norway, I think is a great inclusion for them. I think Denmark have it as well, and I think it's just a very, very smart inclusion.
Yeah, I remember it's happened in several tournaments, going all the way back to G versus G when that came out. Blackout went to a big UK tournament and just took all the old cards and said, okay, everyone's going to make all these lovely new decks and they're going to be really badly built, and I'm just going to take decks that work.
Yeah.
And bringing Combo Priest is the modern version of that, where obviously plays a lot more advanced now, but just bring the deck you know works that has got no real weakness, and Combo Priest is a very good call.
There's a reason it's good. Nice wide board now for Kin. Absolute dominance of the early game, which is not necessarily always such a good thing against Shaman when you have Mogu Flesh Shaper knocking about, ready to destroy your board at a moment's notice. Thankfully for him, though, Glory does not have such a card, and so he's going to have to get through this the old-fashioned way.
The old-fashioned way with invoke minions.
Fair enough, yeah, rush and invoke.
Just like we did, in the early December 2019s.
All right, fair enough.
I'm just in one of those moods, Derek. But the pressure's going to keep on coming here. This is, I think for a short time, and I mean a couple of hours, people believed that Highlander Rogue was actually better than Shaman head-to-head.
Oh, really?
Before the sample size got big enough that, no, you're very wrong.
I mean, I can see where you get that opinion from.
There were a few people who did very well with it. I think there may have been a rank 1 legend with it somewhere.
Yeah.
And just for a very brief time, it was like, oh yeah, we found the answer to Shaman. No, you haven't. Sorry.
Double the power, double
Ixar found the answer to Shaman.
Clearing up as much as possible again here for Glory, but he just doesn't have any of the payoff cards. We're not seeing Galakron or Dragon's Pack or even Mogu plus Mutate, as I was talking about. There's just nothing going on here. So for Kin, I think it's just a case of trying to start dominating this as quick as he can.
Yeah. And with the curve he's got, there's a chance he can do that.
Yeah.
Especially as we can see, as you said, there's no Dragon's Pack, so that's such a big difference.
Is that the first invoke he's done? I think it is, right? Because otherwise he could draw into Galakron and get a tier 2 Galakron, which wouldn't be bad.
No, he played the 2/2 minion, whose name
did he?
to escape me, to clear on turn 4.
I mean Kin, not Glory.
Oh, sorry, yeah, I ignore the rogue Galakron.
Right, sorry, yeah, I meant...
That is his first, yeah.
Galakron's the nightmare.
Wow, knows the names of all the Galakrons already.
I don't think that's actually right. I think one of them may be.
Galakron the backstabber.
Yeah. Alright, there we go. That'll activate.
Galakron the fairly naughty. I don't think anyone knows what the tier 3 one is called because no one's ever had it.
The what one?
The tier 3 for Rogue.
Oh,
I don't
yeah,
think anyone's even ever had that, so it probably doesn't even get made yet.
Yeah.
The art will be designed when somebody finally plays it.
Ooh. Yeah, you're going to take Dragon Queen Alexstrasza every day of the week.
Indeedy.
Mm.
Hong Kong is playing a game. It feels like they're the only ones playing the game at the moment.
Glory's just one or two good cards away from turning things around, though. Here, like as I said, Galakron, Mogu, Dragon's Pack, even just some card draw to start finding those cards. There we go, something like that. Maybe he can turn this around.
So, do you just let them hit you and draw 2 cards here? It's very tempting to play your Electra.
I think so, right? Like, what else are you doing? I guess you could discover a spell first and hope to hit, I don't know, Lightning Storm. Hagatha's Scheme would clear the board even for just 1. But, like, you know, that's not game-winning. Like, finding Galakron or Dragon's Pack is game-winning. Yeah, I like this.
Yeah, while your situation is quite bleak on board, it can change very quickly with 2 full-value Shaman cards. There you go.
That'll do it.
That'll change things in a hurry.
Yeah, how about instead of 9 mana Mogu, we have 4 mana Mogu? How does that sound?
Yeah.
There is little time. I wonder.
Both looking at this thinking, well, you've got to play it, right? They're seriously trying to make an argument for not doing, but... Alright.
Yeah, they're just holding up something more impressive, like Witchy Lackey off the Sludge Slurper, or Mutate off the top, or off the Ethereal Lackey. I think that makes sense. But we're homing
Yeah.
down on actually a lot of damage here. Bloodlust is that lethal?
15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 21 plus dagger. But you can't dagger.
I count 21 as well. 21 for sure. And Kid just goes for it.
Yeah.
I think rightly so. There's very little healing in the Shaman deck. A single dagger, if nothing else, will be able to close it out next turn.
Kin relaying the news that the portrait didn't explode.
The news you never want to hear. Oh, come on. Smack it, face. Make the big boy play.
Yeah, your deck contains Eviscer, or has he used it? But yeah.
Yeah, there we go.
Now you have dagger lethal amongst all other things that could go wrong. I say
Chat.
it every time, but the hardest decisions in Hearthstone are the ones where you've won pretty much whatever you do.
There is one option here between Smork and not Smork, and I'm sure chat knows exactly which one it is. Agatha's scheme is some AoE against a bunch of 1 health minions. That's not a bad card to have found.
Yeah, you can freeze face.
Oh, it doesn't even want it. I mean, I guess it's not good enough to actually save them, right?
Well, you can freeze face as well.
Yeah, that's true. That was actually probably the better choice, right? Because they might have even gotten a mutate off the Mogu. Off of the Lackey, or a Witchy Lackey, to go for Mogu / Shaper.
Maybe they felt they just died in 2 turns if they did that.
Fair enough. Yeah.
Wanted as many cards as possible. I don't know.
All right, that's a big old taunt at the very least.
Yep, urgently needed. Very urgently.
Mm-hmm.
What a deck where you're on 1 health against a deck that's got loads of damage and you still think you've got a chance of winning.
So obviously they have to freeze face here or make a taunt minion and hope that that's good enough.
Yeah.
And it's not technically lethal quite yet, unless you want to nail the 1 in 6. Like
Yeah, just nail it with a deadly shot. Just go.
Yeah, let's start with the rat. That gives us the lethal some of the time.
Yeah, it's a lot more of the time.
Hey!
Do it.
Actually, weirdly enough, it was actually less of the time, right? Oh no, wait. I suppose the Goblin Lackey would also have done it. But either way, that is the game and the series going to Kin and Hong Kong, finishing 3-1. They end up as our 3rd place player here in the Hearthstone Global Games.
Yeah, and we'll see a lot more of Kin next year as well, I believe. So, yeah, good end to the season for him. Good result in Bucharest. Good result here. Obviously, Fung. Steady stalwart of a player, but talk about Kin a lot more. He's been coming very close to big things for a long time, and now 2nd place Bucharest, 3rd place in Global Games, Grandmasters to follow. He's going to have a pretty good 12 months one way or another.
It's a pretty good year for him, all things considered. But if you want to talk about good Masters Tour experiences and a good run here at the Hearthstone Global Games as well, we have to look to the finals, and specifically I'm talking about Dead Draw. Obviously Boar, Fury Hunter and Freddie B are nothing to be sniffed at as well, but it feels like Dead Draw is just really one of the spotlight players this year after such a strong performance at the Masters Tour events, just missing out on Grand Masters by a hair's breadth, and now coming at least 2nd, maybe 1st in the Hearthstone Global Games. It is a very good year for him.
Yeah, I think if he rounds this out and actually UK win this, I think there's a case for saying he's had the most successful year of any Hearthstone player.
Maybe.
Apart from maybe Lion, but outside of that, I think 2 top 4s, 2 top 8s, in Masters Tours and winning Global Games. There's not a lot else he could have done this year.
I know, yeah, it's really just making Grand Masters that could have improved it, really. Or I suppose actually winning a Masters Tour event. But as we saw right at the end, that was very difficult for him to do.
Yep, so we are going to get that set up and we will have our grand final for you in around 3 minutes' time.